Hi there, this is Sheena Rowlands and today I'm sharing with you my latest layout for Hey Little Magpie using the Cocoa Vanilla Studio Happy Days and in particular this pattern paper called Sunshine Lollipops. So I'm cutting the 12 by 12 paper, I'm taking 6.5 inches off it and that's what I'm going to concentrate on. I bring in my smaller guillotine because I'm actually going to cut this into long triangles. I'm going to go from one end to the other, on average getting 2 colours onto each triangle. I think there might be a couple that get a little bit more later on, but I'm just working my way down the paper with the trimmer. I get quicker and quicker the more that I do, and I'm just going to cut all those pieces up to start with. I really love the stripy papers that they do. They tend to have a similar one in each collection, and I'm always looking for something new to do with it. So this is the first time I've kind of used it in this way. So I'm looking at putting it back together in like a sunburst, and going in the same direction colour-wise that the paper originally was, going from purple all the way around to navy. I have brought in the 6x8 one there in case I want to add any more layers. I actually decide in the long run not to use that sheet as well. So I've just brought in this distressing tool of mine. It's very old but still very useful, and I'm just roughing up each of these rays as such, and I'm also giving them a bit of a bend. I don't want them to be completely flat when they are finally adhered to the background cardstock. So I'm not too worried about the tails of them so much because they're not going to really get seen, but I'd like the top and the sides to be quite rough. So I did finish that off camera. I brought in another piece of identical cardstock because I want to add a little bit of mixed media behind the colours, in the same colours, if that makes sense. So I'm using some oxide inks. I've gone through my collection and tried to pick out some that are similar, and I'm using the packaging technique to get some ink down. And I've got some kitchen roll close to hand as well, and you'll find that at the moment I put the ink down, I'm actually lifting it back off again. And when I finished, so I've just finished with the pinky purples there, and I've just added a few splatters over the top. So I'm now looking at working on the yellowy orange colour spectrum, and I've got 2 or 3 colours there on the mat, 4 I think there, and I'm using a blend of those to get those colours on to the cardstock. Now I know a lot of this is going to be covered up, and that's okay. I want it to peek out around the edges, and if there is any gaps then it will be seen there as well. I'm also adding a strip of colour at the bottom, and I'm going to add some more of the pattern paper there nearer the end of the layout. So also it's good to practice the mixed media. I'm not the best, so I don't mind having a go. It's only a piece of cardstock, so it's not the end of the world if I do mess it up. But it's also just a good opportunity to have a play. I've probably got some music or an audiobook playing in the background, so I'm quite relaxed and I'm just enjoying getting some ink down on this cardstock. I do love the colours of the Distress Oxides, they're my favourites. And there's 4 different blues there, maybe 5 on the mat, and I'm using a combo to get that ink down. You can see that I kept bringing in the stripy paper there at the bottom. That's so I can keep them in line with the colours stripes. It would annoy me if I'd got the pink ink where the yellow or the orange were. So I'm just making sure that I'm sticking to the right zones for those colours at the bottom. And when I've left it to dry, obviously that's taken a little bit of time, but not too long. And I'm going to come back in with the fan and start to put it into place. So I'm liking the way it looks. I'm just making sure I'm being reasonably mathematical. I've got a photograph, it's got a rainbow on it, and that's what I want to cover the tails with in the centre. So I'm going to start on the outer edge using that piece of paper as a guide to make sure I don't mess it up too much. And I think the yellow is pretty much central, so I want that to be pointing upwards. And I'm going to try and fill the bits in either side, going with a long and a short, just so I get like a layered look. And now that the edges are white, it's more obvious, so to be where they're separated. So I quite like the way that's coming together. I'm just adding a little bit of double-sided tape on the back of these as I move them around, because I am going to move them around. So I don't want to use a strong adhesive at this stage, just a bit of tape so that I can get them sitting comfortably, and that I like the way the spacings are and that sort of thing. So just tweaking them a little bit using the colours from the top to get them all into position. And it does take me a little bit of time, but that's okay. I'm quite happy to have a bit of a mess and until I get it exactly how I want. I just bring in the ruler just to make sure that yellow is actually central, and then I can move them and to get them into position. So I really recommend you check out this range of Cocoa Vanilla Studio Happy Days at Hey Little Magpie. It's really nice and bright and fresh, and I really like it. I've got another video on my channel if you are interested in seeing something else that's been made from it. So I think I'm nearly done. Happy where with the photo is and the strip at the bottom. I'm just cutting off those tails because otherwise there's too much bulk for the photo. And off camera I actually stitched down the centre of each of those rays in a similar colour to the colour of the ray, if that makes sense. I should have possibly done that in advance, but hey, I didn't think of it and I like it, so it's I know that they're anchored down, and that's a good job I didn't put much tape on the back of them, and that means I can really bend them to make them more prominent. So I've cut a strip, it's about 1 inch wide, and I'm going to add that at the bottom with some of the mixed media still poking out. The word happy is from the die cuts, and I'm looking at using a sort of, well, one of the other alphabets to add to my title, and I'll come back to that later when I've thought exactly what I want to write. These are small florals from the pack that goes with the range, and I've just trimmed some of the white off around them, or I'm about to. Just because I want them to stand out from the rainbow, but I don't need it to be too obvious. So I'm just going to trim a little bit of that white off all of those. And I've tried to pick one to go with each colour. Obviously the green's an issue, we'll come back to that one in a minute, but I did manage to find a flower that I liked for all of the other colours. And I've tried not to make them all the same, I've tried to make them different. I'm not sure it'll make any difference in the end, but hey, that's just the way it is. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them underneath. We always appreciate your input, and it's nice to know that somebody's actually watching at home. So I'm just going to actually start to commit myself. I'm going to stick that photograph down. I'm trying to make it reasonably central. I think it really goes well with the papers that I've chosen there. And I'm going to use some foam that I'm just trimming to go on the back of the word happy, so that lifts that up underneath, lifts it up off the cardstock. So I'm now looking at tucking the flowers in. I don't want them all to be on the same sides of the rays, and I'm going to start to actually trim them. Some of them I cut in half and use in 2 places, some I only tuck in one place, but just to add another dimension to this sunburst really. And I do like the way that looks. As I think I mentioned earlier, there isn't a green flower, but I do come up with a solution for that as I go along, and I'm going to actually use a couple of leaves trimmed to go in with the green. I don't think it makes much difference at all, so I'm just adding a bit of double-sided tape on the back of the flowers, and I'm going to tuck them in as I go round, just making sure they're in the position that I want them. So hey, I quite like the way this is looking. I would really recommend you give this a go if you like this piece of paper. I had a very therapeutic afternoon making this. So my head is still trying to work out what to do with the title. I'm just looking at the word days there, see if I could cut it out of the packaging. But in the end, I bring in the rainbow puffy stickers from this Happy Days collection, and I start to figure out what I want to write. Now the letters are quite small and it does take me some time, and I don't do it all on camera because my spelling is terrible and I had to look a few things up. But it all works out in the end, so I'm going to stick that die cut down. I'm going to look at where I want the words to go underneath. There's so many letters in so many different colours, and I want to create a rainbow feel with them. So that does take me a bit of thinking time as well as I go along. But I wanted to add a little bit more to the title than I normally would do. We were at a RHS garden near Harrogate when this photograph was taken, and I actually wanted to add that to the front of the page, and I think the letters really fit very well. So thank you so much for watching. This is the full image. Here's some close-ups where you can see the cut flowers and the stitching and the title there. So give us a thumbs up, any comments below, and we'll see you here real soon. Bye for now.